I'd like to share just a little bit about the summit of the Global Alliance of Ministries and Departments for Peace. We got involved in this global alliance several years ago, and they asked if Costa Rica would host the summit in 2009. And so I brought a letter back from Japan, where I was at the summit there, and I delivered it to Laura Chinchilla, who was Minister of Justice at the time. And she gave us a letter back saying that yes, Costa Rica as a government would host this summit. So this was a major turning point for this global alliance, which is made up of people from around the world who are working for ministries and departments for peace. So this was the first time a government sponsored their summit. And so the Razur Foundation facilitated this summit, and the government hosted it.
What year was it again?
It was just this September.
Oh, this September. Okay.
Yes.
2009.
Exactly. And so our bill passed on August 19th, and then the summit followed directly after that, beginning September 13th. So on September 13th, we began a Be Peace course here as the pre-summit activity. We had a 40-hour Be Peace Foundations course, so people from all over the world gathered right in this room to take this Be Peace course. So we did that for the first week, and then after that we began the opening ceremonies and the summit learning so that people could better understand how to develop and carry out campaigns for ministries and departments for peace in their countries. So we had over 200 participants from 40 countries at the summit.
Okay. And Saul Arbes from Canada was here?
He was. Saul was here. We had a good representation from Canada. And as I said, 40 countries were represented in this summit. So it was a quantum leap forward from the last summit that we held in Japan, which was also a wonderful summit. It was a quantum leap from the summit before. So each year, the Global Alliance seems to be moving forward in leaps and bounds, because this is a concept whose time has come. You know, what else are we going to do except to shift from the senseless spending of our resources on war to peace infrastructure?
Preparing for the Third World War.
That's right. Instead, we're preparing for a whole new paradigm of peace.
So how old is this organization, international organization?
The Global Alliance was begun in 2005. I believe the first summit was held in London.
Okay.
Yes, so they had a summit in London, and then they had one in Victoria, Canada, and then the next one in 2007 was in Japan, and then they skipped a year and had the summit this year in 2009 in Costa Rica.
Oh, we missed you in 2006 in Canada. We were there, but we were busy with the World Peace Forum in Vancouver, so we didn't even know about this peace conference in Victoria. But I'm glad that we caught up with you here. How does your ideology respond to that people that think you have to have a gang there because there are bad people out there and defend yourself, self-defense?
Well, we know that violence just begets more violence. It's never going to take us home to peace or to the quality of life that we're all yearning for. Just to be able to be free to express ourselves in creative ways and to make a better world. How are we ever going to get there if we just return violence with more violence? It just is logical that that's never going to work.
Yeah, but how do
So
you
it's
stop
pure
people?
logic. Okay, so how do we stop it? I believe that the reason that we have not yet stopped it is that we didn't have a clear how-to. How exactly do we practice peace on an individual basis, and how do we take personal peace into our institutions in society, into our families, into our schools, into our government? Exactly how? So that is the purpose of the Razur Foundation, is to help strengthen the model in Costa Rica so that we prove this clear how-to in Costa Rica so that it's replicable in other countries if they choose to develop a model that is similar or that they learn from what Costa Rica has done. So actually in getting a clear how-to, then people can give up their pessimism. They believe peace is pie in the sky because nobody's ever spelled it out how to bring it down to earth. And we believe that we have that now. We have a model that is very grounded in practicality. And it begins with personal peace, with this practice I've been describing called Be Peace. But it's not just the inner peace. We begin with this inside-out peace, right? Feeling peace and speaking peace as individuals. That's peace from the inside out. Then we have what we call bottom-up peace, which is the natural peace teachers being trained in a very transformative method to teach Be Peace in the schools to the teachers, parents, and students, immersing the schools in the practice of peace on a daily basis, not just as a unit of the curriculum, but as a social and emotional environment in the school. So they immerse the schools in this environment of peace. That's the bottom up. Then we have the top down, which is the Ministry for Peace, so that we have governmental support for carrying out this program in schools and also leaders learning peace. One of our aims in the Razor Foundation is to teach the leaders of society how to practice peace. And then lastly, let me just finish the whole picture so you get the whole of what the how-to is. The last part is what we call the all-around of peace, which is where we get the nonprofit organizations involved in this picture. And that's why we formed an alliance of nonprofit organizations, because we wanted to involve them in a holistic system of working with the government in peace promotion. So just to summarize that, in this how-to, very practical model, peace is inside out with Be Peace, bottom up with peace teachers, top down with the Ministry of Peace, and all around with nonprofit organizations.
From all sides.
All sides. A holistic, practical, grounded, national model of peace that begins with personal peace.
So I hear you saying that to that person that says, well, what are you going to do when somebody comes to rape you, or your wife or your daughter?
Yes.
It's not that you sit on your hands, but it's that how do you do it? How do you approach it is the trick. It's not that you don't do anything.
Yes.
So it's an active pacifism. You do something about it,
Yes.
but not necessarily violence.
That's correct. When I took my first course in nonviolent communication, a person in my course was a serial rapist. And he told his story of how he had learned how to connect with his feelings and needs, because he realized that he was raping in order to get empathy. That as he looked in the eyes of his victims, that he knew that if they were suffering, if they were being disempowered as he'd been when he was a child, then they understood what he'd been through. So he could look in their eyes and get empathy, you see? And so he learned that by connecting to his own feelings and needs instead of projecting them, that he could learn how to give himself empathy, and that he could find healthier ways than rape to get empathy from others. And so he was able to make a huge shift in his life as a result of learning that what he was just communicating was his need for empathy, but he was using a tragic strategy. And that he could change his strategy.
Now let's go one step to the other side. And
Yes.
that's this is an individual cases, but when you look at a nation and you say, but we had to use force for Saddam Hussein, we had to use force for Hitler, we had to use force for nations that become aggressive. If we didn't have an army, how do we defend ourselves?
Well, Costa Rica has been very successful at it since 1948. And Costa Rica also has a neutrality agreement in their constitution that they will not be dragged into other countries' conflicts, that they remain neutral. So I believe they're an excellent example of not needing an army, that actually by choosing to stand for peace, they've attracted peaceful people. They've attracted people who want to live without an army, who don't want to put their money into guns and armies. So I do, like I say, believe in the protective use of force. I'm not going to, for example, if you were that rapist and you came into my home and I work to stay coherent, I'm radiating coherence, I'm giving you empathy, and if you still are attacking me physically, I am not going to just allow you to rape me without any defense.
Force.
That's right, any use of force.